Really good to be up here speaking about access service. My name is Priscilla Bani. I'm an advanced practitioner within Contextual Safeguarding, and for people that don't know what that is, that's basically risk outside the family home. So it's looking at risk in the community, in different contexts, and safeguarding children, vulnerable groups, and things like that. So that's what Contextual Safeguarding is, okay? And I'm situated in the London Borough of Hillingdon, based in the Youth Justice Service. So my focus is really around social work, that's my expertise, safeguarding, and also early identification, and really looking at diversion and prevention services. All right? Let's see if we get this right. Okay. So my aim today is to just give you an overview of some of the impact that we've been fortunate enough to have by working with CLIC, and actually how rich the resource is in terms of really building a picture about actually what's going on in our community for our children, and really just looking at that evolving journey of how access came to be, and also where we want to be in the future, because that's going to be really important for us. I really want to take you on a journey of some of the roles within access and how powerful they can be because of the data, and also just give you an overview of the actual analytics and how I use them in operational settings to actually deliver services, but also strategically as well, where actually decisions can be made for our children to really keep them safe and really work with our partners. And then obviously the future, what the aims are, what the vision is, and where we really want to go with that. So before I begin, I really want you to take this picture in. It's about perspective, all right? So it really does matter when working with children and young people, because on face value, you'll see a child, you'll see a young person, okay, whatever is displaying in front of you, you really don't understand what's going on underneath all that. So really looking underneath the iceberg is where I really want you to be. And as I take you through this journey, you'll understand why that's so important. So whilst it can be really easy to identify risk in the most physical sense, within all our roles within Youth Justice Service, but also in social care as well, it's really, really imperative that we understand what this means in more depth, individually for that child, locally, across Hillingdon, but overall, contextually, across boroughs and even nationally as well. And that will really help us appropriately safeguard our children and young people in the community at the earliest possible time. That's what we're getting to here. That's how Access came about. It was about looking at the gaps and catching children and working with children at the earliest possible time. So more time than most, when Access has been able to delve deeper into the data, it's helped us in various ways to really gain insight into hypothesis, really looking at intelligence, and really just trying to understand what could be happening, what could happen, what does that probability look like, and how do we explain that to some of our partners to work together to really safeguard our children. So as I take you on this journey, I just want you to think about Access in this context, in the context of actually capturing data and the power of that delivery, right? So, how does Access work? So Access is a direct response, as I said, to contextual safeguarding across the borough of Hillingdon. It understands what's happening in different areas across the borough, which matters to us in both the daytime economy, but also in the nighttime economy. When the 9 to 5's over, what happens in that period of time when actually some of our young people are most vulnerable? Where are those safe spaces, and why are they not safe anymore? Why are our children being arrested, or why are our children going missing? So it's about really understanding that, and actually the data that we've been able to capture and use with CLIC and with Catalyst, that's helped us phenomenally, okay? So thinking about our service, Access, it pivots on the sharing and triangulation of factual but also soft intelligence. And that's really important because, yes, we'll have the basic data, but we're also building on that data all the time, building a picture, trying to understand what is going on. Yeah, we have access prevention workers, who I'll explain a little bit more a bit later, who can actually interrogate systems across our agencies and really help with the reduction of risk by doing different things because we understand what's going on. right? Access also provides awareness and informs our partners of any updates to help really inform practice in reducing the risk concerning children and young people in the community. Access really does focus on supporting early identification, really looking at bespoke intervention and diversion for children and young people from different types of risky behaviour that on a normal basis you wouldn't normally be able to deal with, say, in the everyday setting. It's about working with a child and really looking at getting creative in how we can divert that child into a more safer space. So, as I said before, Access can really guide, advise, and impact operational and strategic delivery within children's services. Things I really want you to note, because these questions do come up a lot. Access does not replace or duplicate the role of statutory agencies or practitioners. We work together. It's about partnership. Everyone's role is just as important, okay? So, and it doesn't replace any kind of safeguarding referrals or information sharing within partnerships, right? And lastly, which is really, really important, is Access does not use algorithms. So as we capture this data, which I'm going to show you a little bit later, it's not based on algorithms, it's actually based on the data and the trust that we've built with our partnerships to actually build on that data and really build a picture. And actually CLIC has really helped us do that over the years. So that's been really, really important. We also don't profile children and young people. Really passionate about challenging disproportionality and certain systemic oppression. So it's really important that our passion is about ensuring that we only identify children, offer intervention, and share information, okay? So, our main 4 target areas that I want you to be aware of and how we identify our children are these, okay? So, child criminal exploitation. So, for us, if a child is at risk of child criminal exploitation, this is usually a child that maybe being exploited through criminality, usually involving the trafficking of drug substances or involved in organised crime groups or being groomed in such a way, being made to travel to various parts of an area. That can be locally, that can be regionally, nationally, and even sometimes internationally. Those are the types of children that we would work with, and we would identify them at the earliest possible point. Child sexual exploitation, that can happen to a person either online or in person. So that abuser would literally be gaining a child's trust through coercive control, through violence, through blackmail, through all different types of ways, through the scope of sexual abuse. Okay, so serious youth violence is another identifier for us, and that's looking at significant violence involving children and young people. And also that includes antisocial behaviour. I know that if you watch the news, if you switch on the internet, you'll see things that might be going on with young people. You know, there'll be violence in the streets, and there'll be a young person with an 18-foot-long machete, and it's like, how did he get that? How has that been allowed to sell? How are we going to work with our trading and licensing around this? Why are these being posted in these areas? Who is tackling that? Yeah, and also missing from home. So children that are missing from home and also could be missing from their placements as well. We recognise that those are vulnerable times for our young people. So it's really important that we try and capture that as quickly as possible and see actually if that's something that we need to look into. So these 4 areas have been really prevalent within Hillingdon for about the last 4 to 5 years, and this is why actually CLIC works with us. And therefore it was really important for us to focus on these areas in much more depth, understanding activity patterns and trends and risks to children and young people in the community. Okay, so one of the roles which is really, really important, and these guys, the youth crime network practitioners, they are the ones that literally handle our data. So children and families are identified via the sharing of information by agencies and its collation, okay? They would share information at relevant operational meetings to really inform strategic planning and also intervention that could be delved into. They also provide visual mapping for children identified at risk, and they share that with the following agencies for reference and also awareness. The Youth Network Crime Practitioners also support management with information to risk assess allocation of children to access prevention caseworkers. So they would look at the data, they would look at the analytics, which I'll show you a bit later, and look at actually, is this child connected to A, B, C, and D? Actually, where this child lives, there's a lot of serious youth violence that's been happening over the last 2 months. Are we aware of what's going on? Is there any clear cues here? Let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's find out what's going on. So they would do that, and they would actually share that awareness. So they also, through the data and what the data tells us, they're able to deliver awareness workshops to our partners and to their peers as well, which is really important because, again, we want to share the information because we want to keep children safe. We want to make safer spaces, and we can only do that by the information that we have. Okay, so maintaining the access database, which I'll show you a little bit later, to analyse intelligence received from various partners is very, very important. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be as powerful as we are today. So for us, the access database is rich in resource, and we can do so much, and there's so much more we can do with it. So they also help us distinguish trends, themes within Hillingdon in regards to contextual safeguarding, and also really help escalate any barriers that can be shared with operational and strategic forums. When things aren't working, when we see actually these children being in this park is a real problem because there's prevalence happening here, what are we going to do to change that? What partners can we have come and help us to do that? Okay, so the access prevention caseworkers, their role is on the ground. Okay, they are the ones that would complete early help assessments, really meeting a child and really trying to embed some findings, finding out what's going on, and actually look at some pathways of visibility for other practitioners possibly to be informed, or to look at actually how can we work with this child, what can we do? They would also explore areas of risk in the community through safety mapping and offer a plan of action to prevent further risks from collated data. So again, the data informs how we actually work with our children and what really needs to take priority. So there's always a focused intervention based on the data or the intelligence. There's always a one-to-one intervention with identified children within Hillingdon. They provide support for children through transitioning services, also looking at post-18 now as well. Also thinking about sharing safeguarding concerns, really working together. Everything we do is about partnership working. We all have the same goal, regardless of how we assess risk. We want to keep children safe. And that is the buy-in. That is the buy-in for us, especially with the prevention and diversion being the focus. So really important fact, intervention is consent-based, okay? Therefore, if the parent or the carer or the child doesn't agree with the consent, doesn't want to do the intervention, we don't go ahead and do that, which is very different to, say, some of your statutory services that would have a duty or obligation to find themselves having to speak or be involved with a child or their family. This is about power in partnership. It's about trust, not just with the family, but also with our partnerships, really making it clear that we're working together. Yeah. It's also about being strength-based and also respecting that power of partnership. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some of the analytics as well, just to give you some idea of some of the things that we would screenshot and capture and try and see how we can, okay, look, this is what's happening. What can we do about it? So there you've got some information at the top about the under 18-year-olds and actually all the children we've ever worked with. In the total there, 857 at that period of time. And there at the top there, you've got child in need, looked after children. These are all different statuses of children that are in statutory services or possibly not in statutory services. And sometimes we use this quarterly, sometimes monthly, to really inform our partners of actually what's going on. So really, if we want to, our main aim is to capture and work with children that are not known to statutory services, because we don't want them to come into the criminal justice system, into the social care system. So it's about looking at, how many people have come in recently in the last 3 months? Okay, is there a decline? Why are we working with a lot of our statutory children, and why are we not catching this earlier? Is there something we're missing? We then can go back to the patterns and trends that we're finding and try and look at, actually, do we understand what's happening in that part of the borough? We look at gender as well. We get to see sometimes where the prevalence in some of the identification that we see across our females, which is a bit of a new phenomenon at the moment, that they are becoming more involved in serious youth violence and antisocial behaviour, which means actually what's going on? Some of those roles have changed. Why are females? Before it's very male represented, but actually what is going on there, and how do we connect to that? How do we speak to our children about that? Naturally, looking at age helps us understand those transitional ages, especially from the younger ages going into primary school, then moving into secondary school, and actually those that are not in school as well, not in education, not in training. We're able to then capture that. And that's really important for us, because that's how we target the type of work we can offer. Again, I'm taking you to another page, which is a great snapshot when we're trying to look at who's engaged, actually who hasn't engaged, through a period of time. If we want to compare that to the previous years, we're able to do that quite clearly and look at actually what's different from then, and what's different now, and actually look at, are we doing a good job, and being able to actually self-audit, but also self-reflect as well, to see actually what's going on, and then take that out to our partners as well, and then discuss that with them as well. We're able to see how many children have declined intervention, which is fine. And it's important that that is noted, because again, it is consent-based. We're able to also track actually those children after a 12-month period of them no longer working with our service, to really look at, have they come back to the attention of Access? Are they still reoffending? Are they still getting into more vulnerabilities in the community after intervention's been given? So it's a great tool for us, and really just helps escalate barriers when we see, actually, no, we're not getting enough identifications in, because actually we're not sharing the information appropriately. Actually, this partner doesn't trust us very much. Why is that? We need to build that relationship better. Was it because of information sharing? How can we do that better, so actually people feel more secure and less anxious about what they're sharing and what could possibly happen to a child or a family in the community? Yeah? These are great tools that we use to really look at what's happening at different parts of the borough, and you can really tell what's possibly happening, aligned with certain issues around poverty, certain issues around mental health, certain issues around criminality, and really just looking at actually why are they like that, what is going on. So the blue would be your more areas of where there's less incidents happening, less risk, and as they get much more heated, you will see that they will become a little bit more tanned. And the idea is to actually hone in on that and have a look and see, actually, why is that happening there? You've got a chart down below that looks like lots of squares filled in with different colours. That's literally a map of each day of the week, and you can literally see, actually, there's always something going on in this particular area on a Friday with our 12-year-olds. What's happening? Let's talk about it. Let's get the right people in the room, and let's look at what else we can do. On the side there, where the charts are, usually there are names there, and you'll have the top 20 children that keep coming up for identifications. And if you look at the side there where the heat map is, and it's a circle, there you will see in certain areas it gets a little bit darker, and those are indicators to us from a visual angle of actually these children are continuing to be at risk of exploitation. There's more incidences, there's more intelligence that we're getting. What can we do about that? And that really just helps us put some attention on actually what could be happening for that child, and ensuring that actually anybody that is involved from a professional level is actually understanding what's going on, and we're doing all the things we can. And this doesn't mean that just because we know this, we've got the magic wand. But what it does is it informs our practice and really just helps us work together to look at what could be what could be better to help us look at how we can attract these children and actually work with them in different ways. Again, more mapping, more understanding of what's possibly going on. So here you see circles on some of the different parts of Hillingdon, and there'll be little circles which are little identifications of where incidences are happening. So they could be all around the borough, but really when we start to see a prevalence in a particular area that maybe we haven't seen before, because actually for some people, oh, it's quite green, it's quite affluent, no, we don't get no trouble here. Don't be naive, because crime happens everywhere. And actually, where there are drugs, there will be violence. And where there is violence, there will be vulnerable people that will be in that, whether they be adults or whether they be children. So it's really important for us to be informed. We recognise that exploiters are evolving all the time, getting cleverer and cleverer in terms of how they manipulate our children. So it's really important that we try and understand what is going on. We need to have professional curiosity, and that's what we really challenge and we really try and encourage. Again, working with our schools is major. Schools is meant to be a safe place for our children. Unfortunately, there are incidences and many themes where actually school cannot be a safe place for some of our children, because actually partners aren't aware of what's actually been going on and they don't really understand. And it's about us helping them do that, consulting. And actually, we weren't always in a good place with school. We weren't always in a good place with education because, again, that information sharing, it's quite anxious. It's personal information. But actually, we built on that relationship that now our relationship with education across Hillingdon is so powerful that we're able to turn things around because we are the first responders. We're able to get people in the room when we know certain fights or battles are going to happen. We know that weapons are going to appear at the end of school. We're able to literally sort out situations and get the right people in the right places as quickly as possible. It's really, really powerful. And it's just to say it can happen. So I just encourage people as well. So where there has been an increase of incidences, we'll delve deeper, we'll work with police, we'll really look at actually what do you understand about this and what are you doing about that? How can we support that in terms of diversion? And then looking at funding as well. What can we do? What resources can we put in? How can we support our children? We know that cost of living has been a real impact for our children and families. So it's about thinking about actually who else can we speak to? Is there any other organisations or partnerships that could be doing work with children in our area? So just a little overview on some of that, of what I've said already. Just that rapid, really, reaction to children and young people, really getting in there at the earliest possible time, the right time, with the right intervention, with the right people. And sometimes it's not us, but it's about recognising that, being aware of that, looking at the patterns and really reacting to that as well. That's going to be really important. And exploring those, going even more into depth about the data is going to be really important for us, and really understanding that this is really impactful for Access. And it's because of the data. The data is really powerful, and we promote that all the time because it's not actually something that is always so promoted in public sector. So it's different and it works. And I'm here to say that without Click, we really wouldn't have done some really amazing pieces of work. I just want to show you this slide where this is our data sharing agreement. So these are all the organisations from a local level through to a regional and then national level. So you see in that indoor scale there where it says Project Access, you can really see, yes, across our local partnerships, that's secure. But then we get further on that outer circle, who are people that we are also governanced by, and we work really closely with. It really, really helps when we look at that outside circle, and that also collates us all together. These are our partners, and we work really, really closely together. We share everything because we have to, and that's what builds trust. And we wouldn't be here without really understanding all this. And just thinking about the operational level of this, our work feeds into operational delivery with really high-risk children, really going into high-risk panels and really strategic meetings to really look at what's happening and who is going to do what. We're able to do that in real time. We don't need to wait a week or two for a referral. No, because we've got the information today. We've got the information from last week, and we're able to see actually that trajectory. We're able to really triangulate the data highlighting the concerns, not just of individuals, but also of cohorts. So you'll get groups of children that might be friends or might be in conflict with one another. We'll get that. We'll be able to really just look and triangulate that information and work with our partners, help prevent exclusions and really promote inclusion as well. Our health links, phenomenal. If we didn't have them on board, some of the things that we would be able to do for our children and really support them to get the support that they need, which would then make them less vulnerable because they know it would be detrimental to where their life trajectory would go. We have been able to really reduce that because of our great relationship with health. So I just wanted to say that. This is a tool that we use. Through our analytics, we're able to, on a monthly basis, we're able to share a bulletin. We give that out to our partners. It's another way of showing, actually, look, this is what's happening. Everything you're telling us, here's a roundup every month, so they're aware, and they can take that back to their organisations and look at actually what can we do? Okay, we're aware of this. What are we doing in A&E departments? What are we doing with referrals for our mental health services? What are we doing in safety neighbourhood teams? And this goes to at least 3,000 people. And so it's not just people in Hillingdon, it's people cross-borough, because it helps. Because our children don't just travel in the area, as you may be aware. Children travel across the country, across different towns that are connected to Hillingdon. So it's important that people do understand this, and we build on that relationship, and it just shows how powerful this tool is. So moving on, I just want to quickly just talk about one of our examples. This is a little extract of some of the database that we use. So what would happen is your main data would go in, so things like name, your age, address, status of the child if they're involved with statutory services, any vulnerabilities, conflicts, keep apart lists. We would look at that and really try and connect the dots. Any gang links, we would look at that. This is an example of something real life, happens very regularly. Child A had some undiagnosed needs. We know that children with more additional needs and that go undiagnosed without the right support makes them even more vulnerable. And without that, this child was actually going out and doing serious things and really hurting people. Okay, some impact from home, but also some of the people that have begun to manipulate him to do certain things. So we recognised that, we were quick on the mark, we put in some intervention, and we really looked at diversion and prevention, getting that child the support within health, also within mental health as well, really speaking to that child, capturing that child's voice, really understanding what's going on and capturing more data from school, from police as well, in terms of where's this child being seen, why is that happening, who are they with? All their friends are adults. Okay, why is that and what are you doing about that? So it's about challenging that as well and looking at actually how do we work together. We were able to really do some great work over about 8 to 9 month period, not letting him go, further signposting, able to touch base with us, but actually moving on into a more positive, inclusive way, him getting further intervention in the community and getting him back into school with a further diagnosis to really help him understand actually what's going on for me, and actually I can make safer choices. I don't need to do that. And this is because of some of the database and how that came together. Disruption in the community. So it's not just about the child, it's about going back to some of our partners and saying, actually, how do we prevent this from happening for a plethora of children, for a lot of our children that are identified as vulnerable, and really looking at that. So that's just an example for you. And the same goes for here, child Z. We're seeing a lot of children in group violent attacks. This child was involved in a serious large-scale fight where someone had obtained life-changing injuries. So we're looking at trying to educate children who are involved in those kind of group attacks, actually, why are you there? Why did you do that? What's that about? And really looking at ideology as well, and then working with our health, because it is a public health issue. Child Z had never really come to the attention of Access before. Also, and he just got into year 11, streamed through, there was no issues, no one would have known anything about him. So again, it's about understanding, we don't really have data on this person, but because of the partnership and because we're able to capture that data and really understand actually what could be going on for this child, we were able to intervene. But that we later found on that child had been a victim of a few separate incidences. So we understand actually, remember the iceberg? other things going on, and why was he involved in that one? So actually, Child Z had stated he'd not been able to go into certain parts of Hillingdon, Uxbridge and Hayes because he would be targeted. So it was about looking at the fear for him, his safety, and what he would do as well, any kind of retribution. So really just looking at our role, what we did, we started off with the 9 weeks. That was just the initial one-to-one, really looking at, okay, what can we do? How do we do that? We spoke about different types of intervention, and that's just the axis role, okay? Building on confidence and resilience, really looking at consequential behaviour and just understanding criminality and actually the impact of that, because that is a role that we can play and help because of the data. Axis was able to actually help Child Z enrol onto a course, really diverting him away from further involvement and really looking at that safety mapping as well, not just for him again, but for other children that live in that area that could get caught up in violence. We were able to speak to school, we were able to support school. So thinking about impact, it's not just that child, it's about contextually all these other parts of the community that really need support. So really working with school were able to support that child with his exams and to allow him to further aspire on. Family, able to actually, okay, I can rebuild a relationship with my child. We like to vilify our parents and carers a lot when it comes to children getting involved in criminality, but actually it's really important to understand the complexities and intersectionalities that come with exploitation and serious youth violence for our children, and how difficult it can be when a parent is actually trying their absolute utmost best, okay? And then also just recognizing the data, using the data to track Child Z, and some of his other cohorts were able to track them, and they didn't come back to the attention of Axis over a 12-month period. For us, that means actually that's been impactful. Something has changed, and that's because of actually understanding data and building on that data. So again, just a few bits that I've put there in terms of, so thinking about initial identification, Axis really started using data in 2018. And at that time, we'd only identified 160 children. Up until present day, that's now at 857. So that lets you know that actually we really looked at this. The data has really helped us really focus and capture children that we believe are at risk of exploitation or serious youth violence at the earliest possible moment. We've been able to intervene, support, signpost, and really divert some of our children from some heinous incidences. And we continue to do that. And it's just a clear indication of increase. Like I said, over 700 children have completed intervention. We're able to not be as rigid now, whereas actually maybe at the beginning we were doing a lot of trial and error, but we're able to work with non-statutory and statutory because we believe actually this is something that all children should have access to. Very difficult to do at times when there's more statutory obligations. We tend not to delve too much there, only because we want it to be consent-based. We don't want it to feel that it's forced. It's power in partnership. 86% engagement rate. That's high. It lets us know that actually children want this, parents want this, it's impactful and it works. 78% of children have not returned to the attention of Axis ever again whilst they have had any intervention. Again, which is so powerful in itself and just shows the impact of the information that we have and why it works. And no waiting lists. We remove bureaucracy, we remove forms, we remove referrals, we remove that. We actually work together to try and make it as easy as possible for our partners, parents, children, professionals to speak to us and consult with us. That's what makes us powerful. There's a few things on there that some people have said about Axis. Yeah, it's nice. It's great to hear. And actually, Axis has been fortunate because of this. We're still here, we're still standing, where a lot of organisations might be getting fundings cut. For us, we are the opposite, because actually we're able to evidence with our data this works, and actually more children need this. We need more scope, we need more of this. So Axis has been fortunate to secure even further funding from the Ministry of Justice and the Home Office Serious Violence Unit. And due to the impact of intervention, we continue to work with Mayor of London, who continues to really cheer us on, and he's soon to come and see us. So just to say how powerful that work truly is. and the voice that really matters, you know? We've got a mother up there. Without the Access project, I'm worried my son would have got into serious trouble. They have helped him and me to understand how he could get hurt and made to do things that could hurt other people. He is not hanging around with bad friends anymore and has got into the Prince's Trust, which I'm really proud of. The voice of a female, 17 years old, voice of a male, 17 years old. Access helped me access things in the area that helped me to achieve and focus what I wanted in my life and change my lifestyle. I got the confidence to go on a 3-day residential course and get onto an apprenticeship in construction. I don't go out and hang around the streets anymore getting into trouble. It's just many a story that young people can tell you about how they've been able to divert and really just see life in a different way, experience different things, capture different opportunities, which is what all the partners want to do when it comes to safeguarding children. We have the same agenda. Sometimes it's in a different way, but it's about really recognizing we want the best for our children and young people. So again, I wanted to just give an overview of some of the things we're really looking forward to really delve in a bit further into around the database. So we recognize that actually children and young people don't just stop being unsafe or being vulnerable at 18 when they become a young adult. They don't just turn 18 and be all mature and do all the right things and don't get into trouble, but actually 18 to 25 is one of the most highest prevalent ages of transitional ages to actually get into serious youth violence. So we've currently been funded to do some work with our 18 to 25. So we really want to see what we can do with that data. But again, we are looking at consent because actually they are adults now, they are not children. So it's really important that they understand and they have choice about everything we share. It's a very different way of working. So we're learning about that now and we'd like to take that further, and actually Click is really helping us do that at the moment. So we're really excited about that. Building our network as well. We really want to showcase this. We're always sharing. People are always coming to Hillingdon to understand more about how they can build their own access through data, because actually it's life-changing for our children and our young people and our families and our communities. So thinking about how we can do that is something that is part of our vision. We already really work well with our cross-borough local authorities. So we want to take that a step further and look at actually how can we build on that. And the same goes for building a story with timelines and mapping and making that even more evolving and real time and using all the spec that Click can offer. So yeah, we really look forward to that in the future. But that's us in a nutshell. And I really hope you felt the passion throughout this journey. Yeah. Access would not be as impactful as it's been without the support of Catalyst and also Click. So thank you. Okay.
Just before we jump off here, there's a couple of things that were really impressive for me.
I'll go back.
Go back a few slides. Where's the little clicker gone?
Where do you want to go?
I'm going to go. We're there. I remember when we first started the project, we talked about the gaps, and some of this goes back to gaps that have come across in social services for years, like baby P and stuff, and all of those things, right? And the key for me was, how do we help these guys plug the gaps? And what we do know that's really special, I've got a pointer, look. Sorry, I should have told you earlier on. This thing here looks like a pineapple or something like that, but it's an association wheel. And what it does with Click is it just uses associations, but then it strands every single body that's associated together. So when we first looked at this particular diagram, and we typed in zombie knives, it linked everybody that was known to be carrying those knives. And the Met Police went, how do you know that? And we said, because Click does stuff that you just can't do with normal data, right? And it was just eye-wateringly simple, but such clever ways of using information. So yeah, I'm really proud of this stuff, and you know you are.
Oh,
so if there's any questions, we'll take them now. I know we're running behind a little bit, But I think, it's an opportunity to take questions now.
Okay.
I've got one, I'll shout.
Go for it.
I just wondered how, because I completely get all the different data sets, but how do you initially identify someone? Because, if they're not known to services or they're not in any of that data, it's a real challenge to start that journey, isn't it, around?
Absolutely. So sometimes what would happen is a child might say a child's name and we'll start hearing that child's name and we'll be like, oh, okay, park it.
Yeah.
But then our partners, so our education, they will share. Police, they will share. Not to criminalise the child, to say, actually, have you heard of this child? We've been seeing that this child's been hanging around with A, B and C. They're not in any trouble, but we're concerned about this child. We know the family. It might come from there. It might come from A&E. It might come from health. It might come from a community nurse. It might come from another organisation that might be working with the child. It can come from third-party agency. We get parents contacting us saying, listen, I need help. That's another form of data. And we get children also. Oh, can you work with me? Because A, B and C. So it comes from various places, but that's because of our visibility, and that's been a journey. It didn't start like that. When it first started, it literally was people on the ground, 2 youth workers on the ground doing the work and really understanding what the gaps were. So yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. And the information sharing, that had to be built. It wasn't something that happened overnight. And it was the trust of the chief of police in our area that said, actually, whoa, as Mike said, how do you know that? We want more of that. How do we get in on that? And that's how we've been able to support and help understand what's possibly going on without criminalising the child first. And that's really hard for police. So it's really to try and build that balance. And then with A&E, naturally, if a child's coming in stabbed, they never really had, apart from a referral to Children's Services, they didn't have further to consult with. But now they do. We're able to have those conversations. What happened? Were there people, they're able to share that information. So it's amazing.
Is it a local health flow that you link with? Because we've struggled to get the national health data sets linked to police, to fire. There's no resistance around police and fire wanting to share. It's the ability of that national.
Local. It's local. It's definitely not national, because I don't think we'd be sitting here today. We've done really well. We want to even go further and start taking that across boroughs. But we are a tri-borough for our police. So it's Hillingdon, Hounslow and Ealing. So they're able to share across those 3 boroughs, again, which is so powerful because we get that data naturally anyway. So it's all local, yeah.